You know how Snapchat works. It's fun, fast, and things disappear. Or at least they're supposed to. That's what I thought until something really disturbing happened to me, something I still can't explain. It all started about a month ago. I was up late one Friday night, lying in bed, scrolling through my Snap stories like usual. It was past midnight, and most of my friends had already posted their usual end-of-the-night snaps, some of them showing off their bar-hopping escapades, others curled up watching Netflix. Nothing out of the ordinary. But then I got a Snap notification from an account I didn't recognize, at the Silent Snapper. At first, I thought it was one of those spam accounts, or maybe someone trying to get more followers, but something about the name sent a little shiver down my spine. I clicked it. The screen loaded a black image, no text, no stickers, just a pitch-black screen that stayed up for the full 10 seconds before disappearing. It was eerie, but I wasn't too freaked out yet. I assumed it was just a mistake or a prank. Maybe someone sent a blank snap to the wrong person. That's when things got weird. The next day, I got another snap from the same account. This time, it was a short video, dark, shaky, as if the person was walking through a room with poor lighting. Again, no sound, no message. Just silent and creepy as hell. I watched it twice, trying to figure out what I was looking at, but nothing about it made sense. Where was this place? Why send it to me? Over the next few days, the snaps kept coming, each one stranger than the last. At first, they were just those dark, empty shots. Then they started to get more specific. One night, I opened a snap to see an image of a street, my street. It was taken from the sidewalk, showing the front of my apartment building. I felt a cold chill slide down my spine. Someone was outside, taking pictures of my home in the middle of the night. I checked the timestamp, 3:15 a.m. I was creeped out, but part of me thought it was just a friend pulling a prank, trying to scare me. I brushed it off, locked my door extra tight that night, and tried to sleep, but the unease never left me. The snaps didn't stop. The next day, I got a snap of my building's hallway, just a shot of the corridor outside my door. The lighting was dim, and the image was blurry, but it was unmistakable. The hallway outside my apartment. I didn't even know how to react anymore. The snaps were coming at random times, each one getting closer. I was terrified, but still convinced myself it was just some elaborate prank. But I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was being watched. Whoever was sending these snaps knew where I lived. They were close, too close. That night, I decided to stay up late, determined to catch whoever was sending me these creepy snaps. I sat on my couch, eyes glued to my phone, refreshing my Snap notifications every few seconds. Hours passed, but nothing came through. Just when I thought it was over, my phone buzzed. Another snap. My hands shook as I opened it. The screen showed a live video of my living room, the same room I was sitting in, only this time I wasn't alone. In the corner of the screen, I saw something moving, a figure, barely visible, standing just outside the frame. The video lasted only a few seconds before it disappeared, but it was long enough for me to see those unmistakable shadows. Someone was in my apartment, hiding in the corner, watching me. I dropped my phone, my heart pounding in my chest. How was this happening? I hadn't heard anyone come in. The door was locked. I frantically looked around the room, but nothing seemed out of place. There was no one there. I called the police immediately, trying to explain what was happening, but they didn't take me seriously. They thought it was just someone playing a trick or that I'd been hacked. I didn't care what they thought. I was terrified. I couldn't stay in the apartment any longer. That night, I left and stayed with a friend. For days, I didn't return to my place, and I didn't open Snapchat again. But that wasn't the end. The final snap I received wasn't through the app. It came to me in the form of a text message from an unknown number. It was a picture, taken from my front door, of me leaving my apartment that night. Beneath the image, there was just one message: "Don't look back." I should have known something was off when Sarah stopped replying to my texts. She and I had been best friends for years, always glued to our phones, constantly snapping and chatting about everything. It wasn't like her to go silent. At first, I figured she was just busy or her phone died, but when 2 days passed without a single word, I started to worry. That's when I opened Snapchat and noticed something strange. Her Bitmoji, the little animated avatar that represents you, was still there, hovering over her location. It showed she was at her apartment, like usual. I was relieved at first, thinking maybe she was just laying low, needing some time to herself. But then I checked again later that night, and her Bitmoji hadn't moved. Not once. It was like she hadn't left her place in days. I sent her a snap, a silly photo of my dog, hoping to get her attention. A few minutes later, the notification popped up, delivered, and then the unsettling part, opened. But she didn't reply. That wasn't like Sarah at all. She always replied, even if it was just an emoji or a quick snapback. I checked her story feed to see if she had posted anything, but it was completely empty. Nothing in the last 48 hours. Something wasn't right. I decided to head over to her apartment the next day, figuring I'd surprise her and check in to make sure she was okay. When I arrived, I knocked on her door, but there was no answer. I tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I stood there for a while, unsure of what to do. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That night, I sat at home, staring at her Bitmoji on Snapchat, still frozen in the same spot. It didn't make sense. I knew Sarah. She wouldn't go 2 days without leaving her place, especially without saying anything to me. And then something even stranger happened. Around midnight, I got a snap from Sarah's account. It was a picture of her living room, dimly lit but otherwise normal. No caption, no message, just her living room, like she had sent it by accident. I sent her a snapback, asking if she was okay. No response. About an hour later, another snap came through. This time, it was a picture of her bedroom. Again, no text, just a picture of her bed, the covers slightly rumpled like someone had been lying there. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Why was she sending me these snaps? Why wasn't she answering my calls or messages? The next snap was the one that made my blood run cold. It was a picture of her bathroom mirror. The glass was fogged up, as if someone had just taken a shower. But in the reflection, I could see something faint, a dark, shadowy figure standing just out of frame. It was hard to make out, but it was there, looming in the corner. I called Sarah again, my heart racing, but again, straight to voicemail. At this point, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't just sit there and do nothing. So I got in my car and drove back to her apartment. It was late, and the streets were eerily quiet. When I arrived, everything looked the same. Her car was in the driveway. The lights in her apartment were off. I knocked again, harder this time, but still no answer. That's when I heard it, a faint noise coming from inside her apartment. It sounded like a soft thud, like something being dropped. I banged on the door, shouting her name, but there was no response. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I tried the door handle. It was unlocked. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The apartment was dark, except for a faint glow coming from her phone, lying on the kitchen counter. I picked it up, hoping to find some clue as to where she was, but there was nothing, just a string of unopened messages from me and a few others. As I stood there, I heard another noise, this time from the bedroom, a soft creak, like someone shifting their weight. I slowly walked down the hall, my hands shaking as I pushed open the bedroom door. The room was empty. But the bed, the covers were pulled back as if someone had just gotten up. And then I saw it. Her phone, propped up on a small table in the corner, recording a video. The red light was blinking, indicating that it was live streaming. I picked it up, confused, and saw that it was still connected to Snapchat. The live video was being sent to me. Before I could process what was happening, the phone vibrated in my hand. Another snap from Sarah's account. I opened it, my stomach twisting in knots. It was a picture of me, standing in her bedroom, holding her phone. You know those fun Snapchat filters that make your face look like a dog or give you a flower crown? Everyone loves them, right? I used to too, but now I can't even look at them, not after what happened. It started innocently enough, like most horror stories do. I was lying in bed, scrolling through Snapchat one night, just mindlessly swiping through the filters, looking for something silly to send to my friends. You know how it is, making faces at your phone at 2 a.m., bored out of your mind. But that night, something changed. I was playing around with the usual filters when a new one popped up that I hadn't seen before. There wasn't anything particularly special about it at first. It didn't have a name, just a small ghost icon that blinked when I selected it. The filter was weird. It didn't add anything to my face like the others, no dog ears or fairy wings. Instead, it seemed to warp the background behind me. The room around me started to twist and distort, as if the walls were moving, stretching in ways they shouldn't. My reflection remained unchanged, but everything else in the shot looked off. I laughed it off at first, thinking it was just a glitch. I snapped a quick picture and sent it to my friend Jen with a caption that said, "Check out this creepy filter, LOL." Within seconds, she responded with a simple WTF. I opened her reply, expecting some kind of joke. But instead, Jen had circled something in the background of my snap. I zoomed in on the photo and felt my blood run cold. There, standing in the corner of my room, was a figure. A shadowy, indistinct shape, barely visible, but unmistakably human. I froze. There was no one else in the room. My door had been closed the entire time, and I was home alone. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding in my chest, and looked around the room. It was empty. No figure, no shadow. Just me. I sent Jen a message, trying to brush it off. "Probably just a weird shadow or something," I typed, though my hands were shaking. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I couldn't stop staring at that snap. The figure was so clear, but at the same time, it was like it didn't belong there, like it had been pulled from another world and dropped into mine. I should have stopped there. I should have deleted the app, or at least the snap, and moved on. But I didn't. The next night, I was lying in bed again, my phone in hand. Despite my better judgment, I opened Snapchat and went back to the filters. I swiped through a few before pausing. There it was again, the ghost icon. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Curiosity got the better of me. I selected the filter again, and once more, the room around me began to warp. The walls twisted, the shadows lengthened, and I felt that same uneasy sensation, like something was watching me. I held the camera still for a moment, my breath shallow as I scanned the screen. And then I saw it again. The figure. It wasn't in the corner this time. It was closer, just a few feet away from the edge of my bed, standing perfectly still. My stomach churned, and a cold sweat broke out on my skin. I quickly snapped the picture and saved it to my phone before closing the app. My heart was racing as I opened my camera roll to look at the photo. This time, the figure was clearer. It was tall, with long, thin arms and legs, its face obscured by shadow. But what stood out the most were its eyes, glowing, faintly, from within the darkness of its face. I threw my phone down, my mind racing. This couldn't be real. There had to be an explanation, some kind of glitch in the filter or a trick of the light. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Something was there. Something was watching me. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those glowing eyes staring back at me. The next day, I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. I tried to focus on work, on anything other than that filter. But as soon as I got home, I found myself picking up my phone, opening Snapchat again. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was something else, something darker. I opened the app and swiped through the filters, searching for the ghost icon, but it was gone. No matter how many times I refreshed, no matter how many times I restarted the app, the filter wasn't there. Relief washed over me. Maybe it had just been a glitch, something Snapchat had fixed. But just as I was about to put my phone down, I got a notification, a snap from an unknown user. I opened it, my hands trembling. It was a picture of my bedroom, the same angle I had been using, the same distorted walls and shadows. And there, standing at the foot of my bed, was the figure, closer now. Its eyes glowing, its mouth twisted into a wide, unnatural grin. I dropped my phone, my heart hammering in my chest. The snap had no caption, but it didn't need one. I knew what it was trying to tell me. I wasn't alone. I'm not usually someone who gets scared easily, especially when it comes to social media. Snapchat's supposed to be harmless fun. Send a goofy selfie, watch your friends' stories, and forget about it. That's why, when the weird snaps started coming in, I shrugged them off at first. But in hindsight, that was my first mistake. It all began with a Halloween party last October. My friend Dave was hosting, and I wasn't planning to go at first. It was one of those last-minute costume things, and I hate scrambling for ideas. But Dave insisted, so I threw together something simple, a cheap black mask, the kind that just covers your eyes, and a hoodie. Nothing fancy, but it did the job. The night was typical, plenty of drinks, loud music, and everyone trying to outdo each other with their costumes. Dave had set up this big mirror in his living room, perfect for taking selfies and Snapchat pics. You could stand there, get a full body shot, and still have the crowd in the background. So naturally, I snapped a few pics with my friends, sent them out, and went about my night. But then, halfway through the party, I got a strange notification. Someone took a screenshot of your snap. That was weird. It wasn't unusual for people to take screenshots, but something about it didn't sit right with me. I checked who had done it, and it was from an account I didn't recognize, at masked_guy03. I didn't remember adding anyone by that name, but maybe it was someone from the party, someone I just met. I let it go. The next morning, I woke up with the usual hangover and a few blurry memories of the night before. As I scrolled through my phone, I noticed another snap, this time from at masked_guy03. Curious, I opened it. It was a picture of me. Not just any picture, though. It was from the night before, in front of Dave's mirror. Only this time, something was off. In the snap, I wasn't alone. Behind me, just barely visible in the shadows, was someone else wearing the same black mask and hoodie as me, standing perfectly still. The reflection was blurred, like whoever was standing there was slightly out of focus. I stared at the picture for a long time, trying to figure out what I was seeing. Was this some kind of prank? Had someone dressed up like me as a joke? I checked the other snaps I'd taken at the party, but none of them showed the masked figure, just the one from at masked_guy03. I sent a message to Dave asking if he knew who might have dressed like me at the party. His response was short and unsettling. No one else wore a mask like that. I'd remember. Now I was officially freaked out. Who was this person? And why did they have a snap of me from the party? I didn't recognize them, and I sure as hell didn't remember anyone standing behind me in the mirror. I checked my Snapchat friends list, trying to see if I could find more info on it masked_guy03, but they weren't listed anywhere. It was like the account didn't exist. That night, I got another snap from the same account. This time, the picture was of my street. It was taken from a distance, just far enough that you couldn't make out too many details, but I recognized the layout immediately. The trees, the streetlights, the row of houses. Whoever took that snap was outside my place. I slammed my phone down, my heart racing. I ran to the window and looked outside, but there was no one there. The street was quiet, empty. I locked all the doors, double-checking the windows, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Another notification. At masked_guy03 has sent you a snap. I didn't want to open it, but I had to. My hands were shaking as I swiped to open the message. This time, it was a video. Dark, shaky, the kind you get when someone's trying to record without being noticed. The camera slowly panned across a room, my room. I dropped the phone, my body frozen with fear. Someone was in my house. I ran upstairs, my mind racing, checking every closet, every corner, but there was no one. How was that possible? The video had just been taken, but there was no sign of anyone. I picked up my phone again, my hands trembling. I had to do something. Call the police maybe, or at least tell Dave what was going on. But before I could dial, another snap came through. It was a picture of me, taken from behind, in my house. I spun around, my breath catching in my throat, but there was no one there. The room was empty, the same as before. I checked my phone again, hoping to find some kind of explanation, but nothing made sense. Then came the final message. Look in the mirror. My blood ran cold. I didn't want to. I didn't want to see what was waiting for me, but I couldn't help myself. Slowly, I turned to face the mirror hanging on the wall across the room. I was alone, at first. But then, as I stared at my reflection, something moved. Just behind me, the faint outline of the masked figure began to materialize. Its face was obscured by the same black mask I had worn at the party, but its eyes, those dark, empty eyes, stared right through me. I ran. I didn't stop to grab anything. I just ran out of the house, my phone clutched tightly in my hand, not caring where I was going, just knowing that I had to get away. The air outside was cold, biting at my skin, but it didn't matter. I couldn't go back in there. Not now, not ever. I never got another snap from it masked_guy03. In fact, the account seemed to disappear after that night, just like it had never existed in the first place. But the image of that figure in the mirror haunts me. It's burned into my mind. I don't use Snapchat anymore. I deleted the app, changed my number, and moved out of that apartment within a week. But every now and then, when I catch my reflection in a mirror, I can't help but look over my shoulder, just to make sure I'm still alone. It started out like any other day. I woke up, scrolled through my phone, checked my snaps, and went about my usual routine. I'd been using Snapchat for years, just like everyone else, and never thought twice about it. But there was something that happened to me that I can't explain, something that still haunts me to this day. It all began with a snap from my friend Lauren. We had this thing where we'd send random snaps throughout the day, mostly mundane stuff, like our meals, or a quick selfie at work. But on this particular morning, I noticed something strange. Her snap was blank. No image, no video, just a solid black screen with a single word written in white text at the bottom. Help. I thought it was a joke at first, or maybe she was messing around. Lauren had a dark sense of humor, so I just sent back a laughing emoji and a "What's up with that?" message. I figured she'd explain it when she had the chance. But when I didn't hear back from her that afternoon, I started to get a little uneasy. I texted her, asking if everything was okay, but there was no response. Then I checked her story. Nothing there either. She was usually all over social media, so it wasn't like her to go radio silent. That night, I sent her another snap just to check in. A few minutes passed before the notification popped up. Opened. No response. I sent a quick, "Seriously, are you okay?" Snap, and once again, it showed as opened almost immediately. Still, no reply. My unease grew. I mean, it wasn't like Lauren to ghost anyone, especially me. So I called her, straight to voicemail. I thought about driving over to her place, but it was late, and part of me still thought she was just messing around. The next day, I figured I'd see her at work, and we could laugh about it then. Only, Lauren never showed up. She wasn't at work the next day, or the day after that. No one had heard from her. Her phone went straight to voicemail, and her social media accounts were completely silent. Everyone was starting to get worried. I went over to her apartment that weekend, thinking maybe she was just sick or had turned her phone off to disconnect for a few days. But when I got there, her car was in the driveway and the lights were off. I knocked on the door, and when no one answered, I tried calling again. Voicemail. Something was wrong. I called her family, but they hadn't heard from her either. That's when I knew something was seriously off. I called the police explaining the situation, but they couldn't do much. Adults disappear all the time, they said. Sometimes people just want to be alone. I wasn't convinced, but I had no other choice but to wait. Then things got even stranger. A few days after that, I got another snap from Lauren's account. My stomach dropped when I saw the notification. I opened it, and once again, it was a blank black screen. This time, though, the message at the bottom was different. "You shouldn't have looked." My heart was pounding. I didn't understand what was happening. Looked at what? What was she talking about? I sent back a snap, asking what she meant, but there was no response. Just like before, the snap was opened almost immediately, but nothing came back. Over the next few days, I kept getting more snaps from her account. Each one was the same, black screen with cryptic messages. "They're watching. Don't come back. It's too late." By now, I was terrified. I didn't know if it was Lauren sending these snaps or someone else. My mind raced with horrible possibilities, each one worse than the last. I went back to her apartment, desperate for answers, but nothing had changed. The place looked exactly the same as the last time I was there. Her car was still parked in the same spot, and there was no sign of her. That night, I got the final snap. It was a picture of Lauren, or at least it looked like her. She was standing in the doorway of her apartment, facing the camera, but something was wrong. Her face was pale, almost gray, and her eyes were completely black. There was no expression, no life, just emptiness. She wasn't smiling, wasn't blinking. She was just there. And then the message popped up at the bottom of the screen. "I'm not alone." I threw my phone across the room, my heart racing. I couldn't look at it anymore. I didn't sleep that night. And when morning came, I called the police again. This time, they took me seriously. They searched Lauren's apartment, but they didn't find anything. No sign of a struggle, no evidence that she had been there at all. It was like she had vanished without a trace. Weeks passed, and still, no one heard from Lauren. The police investigation went cold, and her family was left with no answers. Her Snapchat account stopped sending messages, and after a while, people stopped talking about it. But I never forgot. I couldn't forget. Sometimes, late at night, I'd check Snapchat just to see if there was anything, any sign of her. And then, one night, I saw it. Her Bitmoji. It was hovering over her apartment just like before, just sitting there, waiting. I stared at it for a long time, wondering if I should send a snap, wondering if it was really her. But I didn't. I knew better now, because no matter how much I wanted to believe she was still out there, I knew the truth. Whatever was behind those snaps, whatever had taken her, it wasn't Lauren, and it never would be.